How's it going, guys? Brent here. No free ads for Popeyes. I've decided to make my life about 10 times more difficult. There is a practice session for my race car that's been scheduled for March 28th, which is about 8 days away as of recording this. And I'm not ready. So anyway, thank you for watching the channel. Remember to click like and subscribe for me if you could. I'm really trying to grow this thing up a little bit. But for today's project, at least one of the projects, I've got to do this. Valve springs on my engine. Obviously, I'm going to show you how I do it. It doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you do it the right way in the end. There's so many different ways that people, manufacturers, mechanics, people like me who are neither, can do these. And again, I'm going to show you the old hot rodders way, which is a hybrid of my way and the wrong way, which seems to be a theme with this channel. So anyway, let's get to it because time is definitely ticking. So this is the engine that I have in my race car. It's also probably the only engine we can really run in our cars. GM Performance Parts, what's commonly referred to as the 602 crate engine. They retail, I'd say about $4,000, brand new, and if you take care of them, presumably, they could last you quite a long time. They offer decent power for not a lot of money. But these things are not much more than a factory engine. I mean, they do have a few little things to hold up to the rigors of circle track racing, like piston skirt coatings, and I think they upgraded the timing system for the camshaft to a single roller chain. These things from the factory are not supposed to make over 5,800 RPM, but you know, they routinely see 62 to 6,400 without any real issues. But the only Achilles heel if you're going to do that is that you're going to have this. Now, if you're wondering what these are spark plug wire separators. You know, there'd be like 4 of them, like you see like this. But I cut the ends off of them and stuck them on this so that my wires can go down and into the inside of the headers and not completely burn up. You're still going to need heat shielding, but this is what we're working with here. GM, essentially factory Vortec heads. You got a stamped steel rocker, but you do have poly locks, which is a really nice touch, and a single valve spring. Now again, on the right side of the engine, the 2 through 8 cylinders, I do pull the header off because I can't get to the spark plugs, and you'll see why in a minute. But we're going to be changing valve springs, and like I said, we're going to change them my way. Okay. The tools you'll need to do just the valve spring job is not too difficult. I mean, first you got to get the rockers loose, which they are. You got to get the spark plugs out. But doing this job is really not that difficult if you have the right tools. First off being this, I don't even know if you can see that, but this entire tool, you plug into your spark plug port, which I should have done already instead of wasting time showing you what it is. Actually, no, you needed to see that, didn't you? You just plug that into your spark plug port, then you just hook your compressed air into that. It holds the valves up against the top of the cylinder head, and you can pop those things off. Now, the second thing I'll show you is this. This thing here is your valve spring compressor. Okay, I know it's hard to see, it's kind of tight quarters here. Got your handle here, got this here. What this does is it screws on to your rocker stud once you pull these off, and that will screw down. You use this handle and you compress that valve spring. And then the third thing you need is a magnet, nice clean magnet, okay, because that will capture the valve keepers so they don't fall into the engine. Sometimes I like to stuff some rags into the ports here, or you could just be really careful. So why don't we get to it? Okay, so I'd thought about doing this in time lapse, but it wouldn't teach you anything, I don't think, because it would go too quickly. So what you do is you back your, valve keepers off, make sure that none of the parts fall out. Grab your push rod, make sure you know which end is which and what cylinder it goes on. Probably do both at once here. See, all one piece, nice and clean. Make sure you know which end's up or down. Now, these things are typically two-sided. You got the small side and you got the big side. And I think that this is set to the big side. Let me see. Because I used this on my brother's open motor. Great. All right. Hang on while I change this. Okay. Now I got it back to the right size, or whatever the hell I'm trying to say here. So you screw that onto the valve stud. Again, that might not tighten all the way around, so let's just take this thing and go like that. Now we plug in our air. A little loud noise. Yeah, don't be afraid of the engine like rotating over a little bit. It's not a big deal, it will happen. So I should have turned this thing so it's away from the camera, but oh, I'm a genius. Oh wait, I can do it. Hey, I did it without having to use the giant handle on it. All right. Don't do that all the time because your hand will eventually feel like it's bruised or something. Then you grab your clean, not so clean magnet. 2 valve keepers. And just carefully move that up out of the way. Leave them on the magnet. Can't lose them if they're touching the magnet. Pull your valve, spring out. Check it out for wear. This really doesn't look bad. But again, you can't tell sometimes when things are good or bad, so you just kind of replace them anyway just to be safe. Now, you know what I should have done? I should have counted these valve springs because a buddy of mine actually got a full set of these, but it wasn't a full set. Like, he'd gotten, I think it was like 14 and he needed 16. Now I'm going to pull it out of the package here and just take a look at it. And like normal, drop it directly on the ground where it's disgusting. But I guess that's what we make oil filters for, right? Now that looks about right. Let's see. Old one, new one. I'd say that's exactly the same thing. All right. So what we do is just slide it back in. Pop that retainer back on. Now I try to keep it as far down as I can, but I mean, there's not a lot you can really do. Just make sure you don't compress the valve. You know what I mean? Now here's the tricky part that I hate the most. Because sometimes these things just don't lock in, like these little compressors just do not work for you. You put the keepers in, and I try to hold on to them as long as I can and go as easy as possible to retain it. There we go, she's kept on there. And there you go. That's one. 15 more to go. And I will not let you people suffer through that agony for that long. Okay, so there's a quick overview on how to replace your valve springs in your crate motor if you have one of those. I'm definitely not going to bore you with doing the entire other side, but I will bring you back to show you how, and this is I know you're probably like, oh, well, that wasn't any different than any other way that people do valve springs, and you said you're going to do things your way. Well, calm down. I am going to show you how I lash valves, not necessarily how I change valve springs. Because again, everybody has their own way of doing things, and I'm just going to show you how I do mine. And again, there's no real right or wrong way to do it, as long as you get the right results. There is a correct way to do it, but how you get there, you can figure it out on your own sometimes. So I'll bring you back for that. Okay, I'll run you through a little quick tutorial on how I personally adjust valves. Now with these 602s with the uprated poly locks on the rockers, I typically just loosen the rocker nut all the way until it's about flush. Doesn't really matter, as long as it's just not in the way. Now, I do it like some old hot rodders used to do it. What I do is, it's EOIC, exhaust, open, intake, closing. That's what it is. Even I can't remember how I do things. Anyway, you can tell easily which one's which. This one here goes to your intake, and exhaust to this one. It's easy. So you just tighten them down as much as you can by hand, and then you just kind of get all your crap out of the way. Roll it over by hand. Oh, I see this one opening. So that's intake, closing, EOIC. Even I can't remember what I'm doing now. It's EO, exhaust open, intake close. So intake's actually opening. So right here, it's just starting to close. So now I'm going to tighten down this one. Now how I do it is how my dad taught me. Basically, you tighten it down and you roll the push rod with these fingers until it gets tight, like that. Now with these motors, they say a quarter to a half turn. I don't know, I do a little of both. I go here, go a quarter turn, tighten it down like this. I'll take the lock and I'll tighten the lock down, but then I'll tighten both of them down, and that's pretty good. Then I roll it over till the exhaust opens. I don't care how often I have to turn the thing over, the spark plugs are out of it. All right, exhaust is open. Now I'm going to do the intake. Now I know there's all sorts of ways, like if you've got a GM Crate 602, you read the instructions on that thing, and it's this giant convoluted mess of like instructions. It's, oh, you do this one cylinder on the exhaust, and then at the same time, you go around to the other side of the engine and you pick this one cylinder and you do that intake, and then it's like this really complicated puzzle. But if you go with the old hot rodder trick, or whatever trick this is, of exhaust open, intake close, EOIC, you can't go wrong. Because now, this cylinder is completely done. Okay? I know guys who will stick their finger and put it on complete top dead center for every single cylinder, and they'll just do both at once because it's at top dead center. I do EOIC. See, this is at rest. It's still got a little bit of wiggle room. This one's just going down again. But now what other people do is they select different cylinders. Like, oh, I just did this one. Now let me go to the other side and do a different. I don't do any of that crap. I just go to the next one. Make sure they're tightened down. Okay. Here's your intake. Here's your exhaust. Line the ports up. Which one moves? Okay, that's exhaust. EO, exhaust open. So you start doing the intake. And they say, oh, do it hot. It's like, how do you adjust valves when hot? Oops. How do you adjust the valves hot if you haven't been able to even get the thing running yet because the valves aren't adjusted? See, these things are kind of weird. They're wonky. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with doing every single one of these again. All I'll say is when you're doing this, just inspect everything when you have it off for cracks and stuff, just for longevity's sake. it'll help you out in the long run. But again, I just do it like the old hot rodders do it. EOIC. Exhaust open, intake closing. That's good enough. All right, valve springs are changed, valves are adjusted. I'll probably go through it again just to make sure, but let's head on over to the list. I did add a few things, but that can go away. All right. I know it looks like a lot, but that's not a lot. Unfortunately, that's all I'm going to get done today, but that's a big step. That's something that I like to do beginning of the year, just to make sure everything is ready to go and as crisp and as maintained as possible. After I got that done, now I can probably go through, put the spark plugs back in it, get it warmed up at least, get it fired up, change the oil. I might seafoam it just to get the old like 6 months of sitting in a dusty garage out of it, and then see what happens. But this thing's going to be on the ground, scaled, set up, and ready in about a week. And it's my own fault, but I think it's in scheduling, it's going to work out even better than what I had planned. And I'm even going to save a couple days off of work. So hopefully we can get this done. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. Click the like button if you liked it. Really, I'm just genuinely thankful that people are actually looking at this stuff and give me a little feedback. But I like sharing in a lot of my adventures in life, and maybe if we could all learn a little something along the way and make racing fun again, that would be great. But until next time, thanks for watching. We got a lot of work to do.